Hello everyone, welcome to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. So UFC 255 on Saturday. As usual, we'll work our way through the card, see if we can find some value, if there is any value left on the card. Lots have been out a while now, so lots of line movement. Didn't do a pod last week, didn't like the card from a betting perspective really, but just a quick recap on how we've got on since I last done one. So UFC Vegas 13, we had De Lima versus Romanov under 1.5 rounds. Had 2.5 units on that. That came in for us, and we had Chookagian inside the distance, had a unit on that. So both pre-bets came in for us there. And Contender Series just gone. We had half a unit on Tucker Lutz as a plus 160 underdog. Strange line, that one. I viewed it as a pick'em. Gianni, rather predictably, went on the ESPN show after I tweeted saying it should be a 50-50 fight in terms of the betting line. And on his ESPN role, he said that he saw the fight as a 50-50 as well. Oh, what a coincidence, Gianni. So that came in for us. If some of you don't know why I'm referencing Gianni, he was buying my picks at one point under a pseudonym. And he was giving these tips out to his members, giving these tips out on national TV with no credit to myself. As I say, using a pseudonym, complete scumbag. And it looks like he might be following my tips again. I know he's on a couple of the bets I've got for this Saturday, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'll see what else he comes out with. If he's on any more than two of the bets, like I've got quite a few bets this weekend. He's on two of them. I don't know what else he's on. I'm going to find out. Someone normally sends me his bet. So he's going to be named and shamed again if he's on more than two of my bets this weekend. Because if he is, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he's signed up under another name or someone's passing information on to him. And I'm not having it. This guy's on national TV. He has a responsibility to be providing tips to his members off his own back. Or if he is using someone, he needs to be open and transparent and not piggybacking off my hard work. So Gianni, I've got my eye on you, pal. And you're going to be getting called out again if I suspect that you're tailing my picks and sending them out as your own. But anyway, let's move on from that. Enough negativity. So, good UFC last week, or the week before, in fact. The UFC just gone. I didn't have any pre-bets. So I didn't like the card from a betting perspective. And then nice little hit on Contender Series. Got a little bit of action on Bellator tonight. And then got a fair bit of action on the UFC coming this weekend. If you want to sign up to the service, guys, it's ProMMABetting.com. All the packages are on there. You can sign up for a week, month, 6 monthly, yearly. All bets are tracked. Below this video, there's links to the free trackers. You can also view them on the website at ProMMABetting.com. 95% of members have signed up for the year. As I always say, it's a long-term service. We can't win every week. There's ups and downs. I can't promise you the world. It's a slow process, but what I do is I do profit year on year. But you have to take the peaks with the troughs. I can't win every show. It's impossible. If I could do that, I'd be a millionaire. And I probably wouldn't have any betting accounts because most betting sites wouldn't want someone who is winning week in, week out. It's just impossible. MMA, there's too many variables. It's just too unpredictable. With them 4-ounce gloves, anything can happen. But we do win long term. But if you buy into the service, you have to buy in for the long term vision. There's no point throwing your toys out the pram if we have a ropey week or even a ropey month. It's part of the game, part of the process. You need to roll with it, roll with the punches, keep moving forward, and trust in the process long term. So all the packages are available on the website. As I said, all bets are tracked. There's a live betting service as well. We've got a private Discord channel. It's grown into a bit of a community. A lot of the members will chat during the week, discussing fights, breaking down fights, etc. And then on fight night, we will have live betting. I will freeze the chat during the fight so I can pump out any live betting tips so everyone can see them and jump on them. And then at the end of the fight, we'll unfreeze it so people can chat amongst themselves again until the next fight. This weekend, we've got, I think there's boxing on Saturday. I think it's Saturday before the UFC. There's a UK show, so we'll have live betting for the boxing and then the UFC will follow straight after. So ProMMABetting.com if you want to sign up for the service. You can follow me on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. I post my bet slips on there. I also don't cover up my stake. I like to prove that I'm betting what I'm tipping and that my balls are on the line. I'm not just throwing out bets to members. It's a double sweat for me because I have the pressure of the members and I have my own money on the line as well. So I'm with my members all the way. If they lose, I lose. They win, I win. So, you know, and I like to prove that I am betting. There's too many touts. I don't like that word, but I know it's what we're referred to as. There's too many touts out there that don't throw up a bet slip, won't produce one at all, and ones that do normally cover the stake. So, well, why are you covering the stake? What, you're only betting a couple of bucks? You know, so very fortunately we've got a bad reputation, but I'm doing all I can to try and change that. At least on my part, I'm as transparent as can be. You know, there's no cloak and dagger approach my end. If I give out a bet, I'm betting it myself. I'll justify why. I put out a podcast every week breaking down all the fights. I like to prove as well that I'm taping the fights. I know there's some touts that just throw out bets and don't even do any tape. I like to prove that I'm putting in the work, I'm putting in the tape, I'm watching fights, I'm doing the research, and then hopefully the results come with it. But let's move on to breaking down this card. And just to add as well, last year, £100 per unit members won $14,500 across the 12 months. So if you're risking £100, $100 per unit, that was a return last year if you're buying into the pre-betting and live betting service. But let's move on to this card. We'll break it down from bottom to top as we always do. Let me just bring up the fight order for this card so we can start from the bottom. I think Dalby Rodriguez is the first fight. Let me just double check that. No, not according to topology. I'm completely wrong. It's Louis Cosce taking on Sasha Palatnikov. No idea why Sasha's in the UFC. This is a typical kind of UFC signing at the moment where they're just trying to fill the cards. There's nothing on Sasha's record that justifies why he's in the UFC. He's got a 5-2 record. The only thing I can think is he does train with John Wood, so he's in Las Vegas. It's probably just easy for them to take a John Wood fighter. He's in Vegas already. Put him on the card, but I mean, nothing adds up. He's 31 years of age, 5-2 record, like I said. His best win is over a Korean 9-6 guy. He's got some, you know, he lost to Manir Laziz, who we saw beat Razak this year. Laziz looked very good in that fight. He lost to him in the first round. A few years back, he lost to a guy who was 1-1 at the time, and then, you know, I watched some of his fights, and he's got a 5-round decision win, and against a Korean guy, and you know, he just didn't look great in these fights. You know, it's just a very strange signing by the UFC. It doesn't look UFC quality to me. You know, a 5-2 record isn't something that the UFC would normally sign. So unless he's made a giant leap, I really don't see this guy being in the UFC long. Louis Cosce, we saw him on the Contender Series, got a good win over a decent veteran fighter in Victor Reina, stopped him in the first round. The worry with Cosce is he's never been past round one. I mean, he's not even been he's had 4:34 actually. He's had one fight that's gone 4:34 where he got the KO, but besides that, the longest he's gone in a fight is 1 minute 19. The guy gets people out of there quickly. So, you know, question mark about what happens past round one here, potentially. You know, is his cardio going to fall off a cliff? But I've got to pick Cosce here. He has to be the pick for me. He's the young guy, 25. There is that question mark there, but I mean, there's no value on his money line. He's predictably been bet up from, he was around -300 or so. He's up to -450, -500 now. Everyone's obviously parlaying him up. So, you know, there's no value left on the money line, especially with that huge question mark. At least we know this other guy can go 5 rounds. So, you know, who knows what happens post round one. Over, under, really, I mean, yeah, Cosce's finished everyone in round one, but Palatnikov, has he been finished? Let me just have a quick look back at his record. We got finished by Laziz in round one, so he's definitely been finished. And then his other loss was a KO in round two. I mean, it's set at 1.5 welterweights. The under's now. It depends what book you're at. -150 to -170. Cosce inside the distance. -200. I don't really like playing that kind of juice on a prop unless I'm ultra confident, and I don't feel I really know enough about Cosce just because his fights are so brief. So for me, it's just a pass fight now. The under maybe if it was a bit lower, but I don't know. And he's inside the distance line. Not in love with that either. -200. It seems. I understand why it's high, but I just don't feel I've got a good read on that fight, so I'm passing. But I'm going to have to pick Cosce because Sasha just doesn't seem UFC caliber to me. Next fight on the card, we have... One moment, guys. We've got Kyle Dawkins, Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm looking forward to this fight. I'm actually pretty high on Kyle Dawkins. I think he's a good prospect. You don't really see it so much, but he's actually got a really solid striking game. You can see that in his fights. He's got some quick hands, but he always his fight IQ comes into question a little bit for me because he's always doing well on the feet and then he's shooting and take people down. And he's a very good grappler, but he can be out scrambled. Seen that in a few of his fights. You saw it with Brendan Allen. Now Brendan Allen, he kind of played into Brendan Allen's hands there. He was doing really well on the feet with Allen, but then he'd shoot in and take Allen down, and then he'd end up in a scramble and end up on the bottom. He was, questionable fight IQ there because that's the fight that Brendan Allen thrives in. A scramble fest. I don't know why he gave it to him, and he was doing well on the feet. I also saw him in a little bit of bother against Stephen Regman at the end of round 1. He ended up on the bottom there. I think he got hurt. I can't remember now. Was it a elbow? It seemed to rock him. I can't remember, but he seemed to get rocked on the feet. I'm sure it was a elbow, and then he ends up on the bottom, and he's in a little bit of trouble at the end of the round there. I think the ref was even looking at potentially stepping in. He definitely seemed buzzed. But yeah, he just needs to fight a little bit smarter. Like, I understand mixing in takedowns and going to the ground. It's mixed martial arts, be unpredictable, but the guy needs a little bit more faith in his stand-up because he's got really sharp hands. There's no need to be diving in for takedowns when you're winning on the feet. He needs to just show a little bit more fight IQ. But he had some decent runs in the lead up to getting into the UFC. He beat Webb, he beat Lombardo, he beat Regman, he beat Norwood. Not massive names, but decent enough wins. And the Brendan Allen fight was close. If he could have remained in top position in round 2, based on how round 3 went, he would have won the decision there. But Brendan Allen reversed him in round 2 with about a minute and a half to go and done enough to secure the round. Landed, I think it was in round 2. He landed some heavy ground and pound, cut him open. Might have been round 1, I can't recall. But he just gave Allen the fight that Allen wanted. He could have won that fight, Kyle Dawkins. But I quite like him. I think he's a good grappler. I think he's a good striker. He just needs to learn to stick in one element of the game during his fights, particularly on the feet, as opposed to keep going in for takedowns. He doesn't need to do that, but he's an opportunistic guy as well with his subs. But the risk there is you give up position, which, like I say, we saw that with Brendan Allen, and we even saw him in a little bit of trouble against Regman. But I do like Kyle Dawkins. Dustin Stoltzfus, hard to get a full read on him. These fights have been on the German regional scene, but he seems a well-rounded guy, decent enough stand-up, decent grappling. He's done well in Germany. He's 13-1. His only loss was very early in his career. We saw him in the Contender Series, a bit of a fluke victory, had a bit of a rough start, and then he ends up scrambling up to his feet, gets his own takedown, and when Pyfer posted on the landing, his arm snapped. So, didn't learn a great deal about Dustin in that fight, but I like Kyle here. He was hovering around -200. I thought was playable, but it quickly got bet down, and now he's at the -300 or so, which seems a bit wide now. As I say, I think it's hard to get a full read on Dustin, and Kyle's fight IQ can get him into trouble. So it has gone a little bit wide for me, but I do like Dorcas here. I think he's going to get the victory. In terms of where the value is now, I mean, the money line, I don't think there is any value. Prop-wise, I mean, Dorcas does tend to finish fights, but, you know, Stoltzfus, you know, how durable is he? How good defensively is he? I just don't know. Dorcas inside the distance is... Dorcas inside the distance, plus 155. You know, it's maybe not bad, but it depends how he plays this fight. You know, if he does, I mean, if he decides to keep it standing, you know, I don't know if he has KO power. He's only got, I don't think he's got any KO wins, or he might have won, but I also don't want to dismiss his power because he takes fights to the floor, basically. Same with Stoltzfus, he's only got the 1 KO win himself, but if you watch his fights, most of them are grappling affairs. But, I mean, you still expect type of guy to have maybe even won a few fights, especially against regional type guys with ground and pound. But if they favour the subs, they just take the sub when it's there, I guess. But yeah, I mean, neither guy seems like a big puncher, but I don't want to completely dismiss that. So, you know, maybe you're relying on a submission from Dorcas if he's going to get the victory. So I don't know. It's just a hard one. So again, like Cosce, it's just hard to get a proper read on Dustin, just because, you know, the guys he's been beating, he's been a level above. This is a big step up in competition for him. So, you know, sink or swim time. And I'm not sure if he's going to sink or if he's going to swim here. So I'm struggling to find any value on that fight at the moment. Dorcas submission is paying plus 250. You know, maybe not a bad bet. You know, some kind of scramble, he could lock something up, but I don't know. Like I say, I can't get a full read on Dustin, but I am picking Kyle here, and I thought at around minus 200 it was a decent enough bet. I think it opened even lower. I think he opened at, it says minus 150, so if anyone got on that, I think that's a very solid bet. But I'm going to pick Kyle Dorcas here, and I'd like it to go 3 rounds because it'd be interesting to see you get a better read on Dustin then moving forward, and also get a better idea on Kyle when he's fight IQ. You know, he does need to sharpen that up a bit if he wants to move forward and start getting the bigger wins as he progresses in his UFC career. So next fight, we've got Alan Jouban, Jared Gooden. So Jouban, he's like 38 years of age now. He's coming back from a near 2-year layoff. He had knee surgery. Chin hasn't looked great. But Jared Gooden, I just don't think he's that good. But you just don't know. Some of these guys come off the regional scene and just look better in the UFC. Is he going to be one of those guys? I don't know why. I've just got a feeling he might be one of them guys. Money's been coming in on Jouban. Gooden is, you know, he's out at plus 130 or so now. He's starting to get tempting, but his tape was just so underwhelming when I done it. I don't know. I think I need a bit of a bigger number to bet him. I did have money on him. He was meant to make his debut against the guy that Jouban last fought, and he was like I think I got him at like plus 200 because that fight I saw it just being a bit of a brawl, so I gave him a good chance. And why I know Alan Jouban couldn't be dragged into a brawl, he's also shown in the past that he can fight maturely. I mean, he did last time out, and he did against Mike Perry. When he faces a big hitter, he seems to fight with a bit higher fight IQ. But yeah, I mean, this is a big step up for Jared. He lost to Michael Graves where he got wrestled. He took a loss against Bruno Oliveira up at middleweight. Guy's massive. We just saw him lose on the Contender Series, but big guy. He got caught early. And then, you watch his fight with Marcel Stamps, and it's just a bit of a mess. And then even with Trent McCowan, it wasn't the best look in the world. Trent really gassed out in that fight. And that was only back in July, so, how much better is he going to look? But, Jouban's age, he's 37, he's nearly 38. The 2-year layoff, well, it's not 2 years, it's about over 18 months, about 20 months. Dwight Grant's the guy who's coming off the He actually lost to Dwight Grant, but it was it was a bit of a nothing affair, really. Jabane probably nicked it, but Jabane was worried about getting caught. He was a little bit careless in round 1. He got caught a couple of times and then kind of sent him into his shell. And he had them bad knockout losses. I know Gunner subbed him, but he was basically KO'd for all intents and purposes. And he had that bad knockout loss to Nico Price, and then got a bit of a gimme fight with Ben Saunders, and then the Dwight Grant fight. Like I said, he could have definitely got the victory there. Mike Perry he fought very smart against. Really schooled Perry. He looked really good in that fight, but that was 4 years ago, and the guy's getting up there in age. He also suffered a bad knockout loss to Albert Tumanov as well. I remember betting Tumanov there. Nasty knockout loss. So he can definitely be cracked, Jabane, but I'm going to pick Gooden just based on the line. But in terms of a bet, I'd probably want plus 150 to pull the trigger on Jared. But I mean, the strategy for Jared has to be he needs to come out and put the pressure on, get in Jabane's face, and try and crack that chin. And if you're Jabane, it's to try and stick a move, play the matador, not get involved in a brawl. You've got to trust Jared's chin over Jabane's at this point, and I wonder how Jabane's going to look as well. Like, nearly 2 years out, he's had knee surgery, he's 38 years of age. Is he going to start to show his age in there? But I understand why people are betting Jabane, why the line's gone up, because when you do the tape, I do favour Jabane, but just them X factors and the guys coming off the regional scene looking better in the UFC. Just based on the line, I have to pick Jared Gooden, but it's definitely not a confident pick. So if you are betting Gooden based off what I'm saying here, I would definitely keep it small. But I think for me to pull the trigger, I'd like plus 150. But I'm going to pick Gooden here to get the victory over Allen. Next fight, we've got Nicolas Dalby taking on Daniel Rodriguez. So Nicolas Dalby is coming off that loss to Jesse Ronson. It was declared yesterday that Ronson has just been banned by USADA for, I think, 20 months. Tested positive, I think it was 4 days after that fight, for some type of steroid. So Dalby's probably going to get a no contest for that fight as well. So a little bit of a present there for Nicolas Dalby, a loss that's probably going to be changed to a no contest. I would imagine it was in Abu Dhabi, so I think it's at the UFC's discretion, but I would imagine they would change it to a no contest. I think most athletic commissions do if someone pops after the fight. So probably going to become a no contest. So he's got Daniel Rodriguez here. Rodriguez is in on short notice. Dalby was meant to face... let's have a look. Oh, he's meant to face the other Cosce brother. So he's... again, another guy, Cosce, still hard to get a read on him, but on paper, Rodriguez seems like a tougher fight for Dalby. I bet Ronson against Dalby. I thought the line was way off. He was like a plus 250 underdog. I feel I've got a good read on Dalby. I saw his first UFC run. I then watched him come back in Cage Warriors. Dalby's in an unfortunate position where he's kind of too good for the European scene, but he's just not good enough for the UFC. What holds him back is he lacks power and finishing ability. Most of his fights end up being 3-round affairs, and it's just hard to constantly win 3-round decisions at this level. And he also has a nasty habit now. He's durable, but he seems to get dropped in like every fight. Jesse Ronson, last fight, he got dropped, and he survived the actual knockdown, but he survived in the sense that he didn't lose by KO. He ended up getting submitted by Ronson, but he's just always getting put down in fights. And then, you've pretty much, if you get dropped in a round, you've pretty much lost that round. So then, you're chasing your tail from the first round. So that's a big problem for Dalby as well. And the other problem here is Daniel Rodriguez is a southpaw, and Dalby has a horrible issue with southpaws. I think he's 0-4 or 0-5 versus southpaws. He just really seems to struggle with them. So I have to go with Drod here. The line's a bit wide now. I wouldn't be playing him at minus 300, but I just think he's going to create problems. Dalby's probably going to look to try and wrestle here. So that is a bit of an unknown with Rodriguez. Will he have some success wrestling? Potentially. But I don't think so. My gut says Dalby's going to be outstruck here. In terms of where the value lies, I think the over, I was surprised this was set at 1.5. I think there's a bit of recency bias there. Rodriguez is coming off that quick KO win Dwight Grant, where Dwight Grant hurt him, and then Rodriguez survived, and Grant was just absolutely gassed. It was ridiculous how gassed he was. He was just a sitting duck to be finished. And then Dalby's obviously coming off being finished in the first round. But historically, Dalby is very durable. He's still never been KO'd. I know he got dropped last fight and then sold, but he seems to get dropped most fights and he tends to survive. Now he is 36, getting on for 37. There is going to be a point where that durability is going to wane, and as I said, he does get hit, so he's the type of guy that his chin is going to crack at some point. But I still think the over should have been at 2.5 here. When I looked into Rodriguez's record as well, I think pretty much, I can't remember the exact stat, but like literally only one of his last 9 fights had ended. So I think he's won 9 on the trot. I'm pretty sure only one had finished under 1.5, which was his last fight. Now he has got power. He can catch Dalby, but based on that stat, I just think there's a little bit of recency bias creeping in there. You've got to remember how durable Dalby is, and the type of opponents he's been in there with. He's faced good guys. He's been dropped, but he's recovered. You had the Darren Till fight where he got dropped and recovered. Zach Cummins dropped him and he recovered. Peter Sabata dropped him and he recovered. I can't remember if Zaleski dropped him. Pedasoli dropped him in Cage Warriors and he recovered. But obviously there is a point where you can't keep getting dropped and recovering. It's going to catch up with you. But I think there was value on the over. It was down at about minus 140 at one point. It's been bet down now, predictably. It's now, depending on where you're looking, minus 170 to minus 190. But honestly, I think there's value on that up to I think about 70% of the time this goes over, which is in odds terms is like minus 225, minus 230 maybe. But at the same time, I definitely wouldn't want to be playing it over minus 200. But I do feel that the over, obviously you've got to factor in it's a small cage as well, and there probably are, if we looked at the stats, more finishes in the small cage. But something else to bear in mind when looking at that stat since the post-COVID era is there's a lot of mismatches happening that with guys fighting that wouldn't normally be in the UFC. Sasha, for example, is an example this week. He wouldn't be in the UFC under normal circumstances. So I'm going to pick Rodriguez. Don't see the value on the money line. For me, the over is where the value is on that particular fight. Next fight we have... One moment, guys. Let's just get my list up. I think it's Antonina Shevchenko taking on Ariane Lipski. So Antonina, we know where her weakness is now. It's the takedown defence and it's the grappling. Big weakness for her. On the feet, she's very good. One of the better women strikers out there. Very technical, as you'd expect being a Shevchenko. But she just hasn't managed to replicate her sister's grappling prowess. I mean, she's come to MMA late, so... it's you can kind of understand it, but you would expect it to be a bit better than it is. I mean, the Katlyn Chookagian fight was not a good look at all. Fortunately, she's got Lipski here, who is probably going to give her a striking match. You look at Lipski's fight, she's only hit one takedown in the UFC. I think it's the only one she's attempted. It was in round 3 against JoJo. She hit like a horrible head and arm throw that managed to drag JoJo down. Nah, she could hit that on Shevchenko, but she's gonna have to do it 2 or 3 rounds and then keep her on the bottom for the duration. And it's just not really Lipski's style. I think we're gonna get a stand-up fight here. And I remember when Lipski was coming into the UFC, there was so much hype behind her. A lot of people who I chat with were really, really high on her, and I just didn't see it at all. And that's not me saying, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. I miss plenty of fighters coming to UFC who I think are going to be good and they end up flopping. But Lipski was one where I just did not see the love for her at all from day one, and there was many people high on her. And she made her debut, didn't look good, and then even people were still high on her for her second UFC fight, and she flopped again. I just don't see the love for her at all. She's not a bad striker for a woman, but she slows down in fights. Volume can drop off. And I just think she's outmatched on the feet here. I think on the feet, Shevchenko wins this fight. The line's kind of held steady at about -150. I don't think that's even at -150. Because I think we're going to get a stand-up fight here. I don't think Lipski's really got the style to expose Antonina's major weakness here. I think she'll get the stand-up fight she wants, and I think she beats Lipski on the feet. So I'm going to pick Shevchenko here. I mean, it's very likely going to be by decision. Because women's MMA, very rare we see KOs, and Shevchenko doesn't really have any power. But I'm going with Shevchenko here to win this fight, and I don't think -150 is that bad a line. I mean, you don't really want to be paying much more than that, because if the grappling does come into play, it's a major issue. But I do foresee a stand-up fight here, and the pick for me is Shevchenko. Next fight, we've got Buckley taking on Jordan Wright. So Buckley is coming off that remarkable KO win against Cosce, whatever his name is, Impa, can't remember his name. Remarkable KO, one of the best you're going to see. Buckley is all power shots. He will come out throwing hard. He'll be on the front foot. He'll throw to the body. He'll throw to the head. Very high tempo style, but his cardio seems to hold up. I remember when he made his UFC debut against Kevin Holland, he was throwing hard, and it was like, oh God, this guy ain't going to keep this pace up. But, he manages to, even though you hear him, especially with a low crowd, you can hear him breathing heavy and that, he manages to maintain the pace. So I think he's got a very difficult style for Jordan Wright, because Jordan Wright is the type of guy, to me, he's got that like karate kind of style, where they like space, they like to be able to move around. Buckley's not going to give that to Wright. And you saw against Hernandez, it was over very quickly. So I don't want to read too much into it, because I always say that I don't like to read too much into quick KO losses, because people just get caught cold. It just happens. But that Fernandez fight wasn't a good look. And I mean, Jordan Wright's never been past round one, except for his fight against Checo in LFA, where he got the KO early round two. Bit of a fluky KO. He threw I think it was a body kick or a head kick he threw. And as we see from time to time, sometimes the knee landed and knocked out Checo. First round, Wright was looking all right on the feet, but most of it played out on the ground with Wright on top. So his cardio is a big question mark here, and Buckley is someone that's going to put a pace on him. I'm actually surprised the line's been coming. Now, I'm not saying the line's off. He's -240 now at some places, Buckley. I really thought the line was going to go the other way with all the hype, with the big KO win. Maybe it will with casuals jumping on it closer to fight day, but I mean, I'm not saying I'm betting -240, -250 money line. I'm not. I'd like it to be more like -200. But I think at the moment, with that being the way it is, you need to look at the props here. And I really do think the pressure is going to be a problem for Wright. I mean, you've got the under sitting at about -150, which, when I look at an under, and this is a complete mismatch, I really like both guys to be able to finish. Do I think both guys can finish? I mean, Buckley, I'm not saying he's chinny, but he has been stopped a couple of times. So, and this is he's got the southpaw stance here. And he's facing an orthodox fighter. So you've got Wright's head kick is going to be there. So I know head kick's quite low percentage, but Wright's the kind of guy that's he's going to be pretty effective with them, because he can just whip them up without much tail. And he could catch someone like Buckley with it. But I mean, I do think Buckley knocks him out. But the under is kind of tempting. Sitting at -150. The fight doesn't go to a decision in like -500. Buckley wins by KO is basically sitting at the same price as the under. So depends what way you swing. Are you more confident in the under, or you're more confident in just Buckley getting the KO at some point. But for me, I think that's where the value lies, looking at the under, looking at Buckley by a KO. I think the money line is going to get better, although it has been gradually coming down. So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it's going to keep coming down. I thought there'd be more hype for Buckley coming off that KO win, but I just think that Wright's style just plays into Buckley's hands. He's not going to like the pressure. He likes space. He likes to move around. It's a small cage as well. So I have to go Buckley by KO. I think he's just going to crumple him. Next fight on the card, last fight before the main card, Brandon Moreno taking on Brandon Royval. Great fight in the flyweight division here. Brandon Royval has looked very good in the UFC. 2 wins, Tim Elliott, and he's coming off a good win over Kai Kara France. And Brandon Moreno, been around a long time now. The guy's steadily improving, still only 26 years of age, and definitely looks like a contender with his durability, his improvements, he's scrambling, he's striking. And I like him here against Brandon Royval. I'm not in love with the money line. Kind of would have loved the -150 here. He's kind of stuck at -190, -200. But for me, Brandon Royval is he's just too hittable. Like, he'll come in, he'll throw the body kick from his southpaw stance, but it's so counterable. He's very high, chin up. He's just really hittable. I don't think he's going to have much success scrambling with Moreno. Moreno's, survived against the likes of Formiga on the mat. He's very competent on the mat himself. Also against Askarov, managed to scramble fine with him. Real good scrambling ability. I think it will come down to who wins on the feet, and I just think Moreno's straight boxing, solid chin, forward pressure. I just think he's just going to be too much for Brandon Royval's more wild, reckless approach. I just think he's going to eat quite a lot of big shots here, Royval. So I'm going to go with Moreno. As I say, not in love with the money line. Would have loved it to have dropped a bit lower, but at the same time, I don't want to miss out on Moreno because I'm pretty confident in him here. So the pick is Brandon Moreno, probably by decision. I don't really see a finish. I've not actually looked at the over on this fight. I remember against Askarov, the over was really good. It was like even money, but I assume they've not been as generous this time. Oh, Jesus, it's not bad actually. It's like minus. You always get a decent line on the over with Moreno, but I mean, he's not a finisher. It's going to be sweaty because there's going to be scramble. There's probably going to be submission attempts. Royval's going to take some big shots, but I still see this fight going to a decision. So I think the over is a decent play there. I do. It's the first time I've actually noticed it. -130. I think that's decent. So for me, but I do like Moreno here, so I wouldn't want to go all in on the over. I'd want to have something on Moreno money line just in case he finishes. But I do think that's decent odds for the over. For some reason, you always get a good line on Moreno's over, even though, let me just make sure I'm not talking absolute rubbish, but I'm pretty sure he's not a finisher at all. Brandon Moreno, here we go. Finishes in the UFC. Let's have a quick scan. I mean, he's got 2 KO wins in his career. So decision. I finished there, but that wasn't UFC. So his last 3 UFC fights have gone to decision. Then he had a fight outside of the UFC, and then next to UFC fights, decisions. Finished Dustin Ortiz, caught him with a head kick and managed to snatch up the submission. Benoit, decision. Finished Smolka. The Smolka just dolphin dived into a guillotine. So yeah, I don't know why you always get I mean, like I say, it will be sweaty because both these guys bring it, and you've got the small cage factor, and I guess they're looking at Royval and they're seeing, I mean, he's only been in victory, he's only been to a decision once, and this is another thing with Royval to bring in as well. He's only won a decision once. That he's lost 4 times the professional all by decision, and that probably is, well, a big factor is probably due to the way he fights. He's quite reckless. He's very hittable. He's the type of guy that you can score points against, and you know, if you watch a Casey Kenny fight, Casey Kenny just completely shut him down, took him down, and just controlled him on the mat. I guess it's a path for Moreno, but I do expect this fight to play out on the feet. But yeah, that over is, to me, just seems the play. I mean, Moreno's only been finished. I know Pantoja finished him on The Ultimate Fighter, but I mean, it's the only time he's been finished. And that's a bit of an anomaly, and that was early in his career as well. So, yeah, I think there's value on the over there, if I'm completely honest. So, yeah, I like Moreno. I think he'll win by decision, and I think the over is a solid price. Next fight. So we're on to the main card now. We've got the Shogun Paul Craig rematch. Shogun is definitely shot. Paul Craig, is he making some improvements? Possibly he is. But you know, I think Shogun won the first fight. I mean, he didn't play out how I expected at all. But I think based on the line, I've got to pick Shogun here. He's like minus, what is he now? Plus 150. He is shot one, but it's still Paul Craig. The problem with Paul Craig is he's like fight IQ. I mean, Shogun couldn't actually get him down. If you look at the fight, the takedowns are off of one's a caught kick and another one is a Paul Craig just like shot him for a double, and Shogun easily stuffed it, and Craig just flopped to his back. And then Shogun's a very good grappler. I know Paul Craig's very good from the bottom with his submissions, which is so rare at light heavyweight. But he is very, very cute with the submissions from the bottom. But even a shot Shogun, the grappling side of things, lasts longer beyond, on the feet he is shot now. His reflexes have slowed. He can't take a shot as well. He's slower. But grappling, when you're just trying to ride someone out, you can get away with that for longer. So he's still more than competent on the ground. And you saw in the first fight, like Paul Craig couldn't get anything going from the bottom. So that is Shogun's realistic path to victory, is getting takedowns, and he couldn't get him down in the first fight though. Like I said, it was just silly stuff from Paul Craig that resulted in him being on the bottom. But I just don't trust Paul Craig's fight IQ. Like, you watch the Manyfield fight and he ends up getting knocked out because he goes for, I think is it a spinning back kick or a spinning hook kick, and it's like, mate, you're shit at them. Why are you attempting it? And he ends up getting knocked out because he gives his back, and as he's turning he gets caught. It's just like, he shouldn't never have thrown that shot in the first place. But, I don't want to say Shogun doesn't have a chance on the feet either. The guy will still carry power. Paul Craig's chin, isn't granite. But bizarrely enough, the first fight, Paul Craig won on the feet, Shogun won on the mat. Kind of complete reversal to what everyone expected, I guess. But you've now got a line flip where Craig is a moderate favourite. He's sitting at, the minus 170, minus 180 range. And, for me, it's more, I can understand Craig being a slight favourite, but I just think the line's a bit wide. It's difficult to have faith in Shogun, but, he has fought since the Craig fight, at least. He's not had a year out. He did have the fight with Lil Nog, where I bet Lil Nog there as I can't remember what, I got plus 200 or so, and I thought he won that fight. It was very close, but I thought he nicked the decision. Shogun got it, but I think one thing Shogun can change in this rematch is he can throw more of his leg kicks. He didn't really throw them in the first fight. You saw him throw them more against Lil Nog, and he tore his leg up. I think that's definitely something he can use here against Paul Craig. And I don't know, Shogun seemed to get buzzed pretty early in that Paul Craig fight, and I don't know, it just seemed to affect him for the rest of the fight. I don't know, he looked a bit starry-eyed on the feet to me. I don't know whether he never properly recovered. If you recall, Craig had that barrage of punches on the fence, but I just personally can't bring myself to bet Paul Craig as a favourite. He's not the kind of guy that I can bet as at minus 170, minus 180, and I think there's a bit of value on Shogun. I think the line should be a bit closer. Next fight, we've got Cynthia Calvillo taking on Katlyn Chookagian. I'm really bad, guys, at calling Cynthia Calvillo fights, because I watch tape on her, and as good as she is on the ground, I always question her ability to get fights to the floor. Most of her takedowns are off caught kicks. But then she has to fight with Jessica Reyes. She comes in, first fight at 125, and her takedowns look better. I think Jessica Reyes looks a bit flat in that fight. I don't quite know what was up. Not to take away from the win, but she just didn't kind of look as sprightly as she normally does to me. But maybe I'm taken away from Cynthia's win. Maybe it's just Cynthia was just that much better than her. But Cynthia's takedowns definitely looked better in that fight. It wasn't just called kicks. That the line here is wide. I can't fault anyone for playing Katlyn Chookagian here, but Cynthia is very good on the mat. If she gets top position, really good grappler. She'll threaten with submission. She's got good control. Can she take Katlyn down? Through conventional takedowns. She took Jessica Reyes down, who's got a decent wrestling background, so I guess she can. But the thing with Katlyn is she throws a lot of kicks. And Cynthia is very good at catching kicks. We saw Jojo catch a few kicks of Katlyn. I think she was throwing the teep kick against Jojo. And even though I'm sure her corner told her to stop throwing it between rounds, she still threw it in the next round and got taken down, which, isn't the best fight IQ. And you've definitely got to be careful against Cynthia throwing the kicks because, as I say, she is good at catching them. And if she does get a takedown, it is difficult to get back to your feet, and she will progress positionally on the mat, and she's very solid. So on the feet, I have to give Chookagian the advantage. I mean, that line is wide. It is a wide line. Plus 220, plus 210. What's the Chookagian decision? Is there much difference? Because, highly unlikely she finishes. Chookagian by decision is sitting at plus 305. It's not good. No, you may as well, if you're going to play Chookagian, just take the money line just in case, guys. I know it seems very unfeasible that Chookagian finishes a fight, but you just never know. But like I said, I'm not good at calling Cynthia a fight. I've got a feeling Cynthia's just going to win this fight she's going to get enough takedowns to win a decision. But look, as I always say, this podcast is looking at value, and if I think there's value on a fighter, I'll pick that fighter unless my gut is telling me, that no, that person isn't going to win. But here, I think Cynthia's going to win, but my gut isn't screaming that, Cynthia definitely wins this fight. So I'm going to go against my gut here, and based on value, I'm going to pick Chookagian because that line is wide. I mean, 5 times she's plus 230, bet online plus 220. It's women's MMA at the end of the day, and while this is higher level women's MMA, on the feet, Katlyn wins this fight. She does. So Katlyn has a clear path to victory here, and she comes in with a clever game plan, limits the kicks. It's a big part of her arsenal, so whether she can do that or not, I don't know. But definitely the low kicks. Don't throw any low kicks. If she comes out straight away and throws a low kick, she's like, what are you doing? But it's a winnable fight for Chookagian. She can win it. Those odds are off. Cynthia should be a favourite, but not that wide. So I'm going to pick Chookagian. I'm not confident because I don't trust her to not get taken down off of throwing kicks, but I'm going to pick Chookagian here to win this fight. Next, we've got Mike Perry taking on Tim Means. Full disclosure here, I had a unit on Mike Perry that I've now bought out of. I try not to read too much into what's going on in the fight camp, blah, blah, blah. But with Mike Perry, you have to pay attention to it. Mickey Gall fight, he came in cornered by his girlfriend. He was posting pictures on Instagram training with God knows who it was. And, I rewatched the Gall fight and it wasn't as bad as I recall because I had money on Mike Perry to win inside the distance. So, and, he did nearly finish the end of the second round. Gall was probably saved by the bell. And Gall did take some big punches. I think Perry finished the fight in mount. Gall done well to survive there. Fair play to Mickey Gall, tougher than I expected. But Perry definitely looked off. His timing looked off on the feet. He didn't really start winning the striking exchanges until Gall started to slow down. Mike Perry's best performance is probably against Vicente Luque. Fight could have gone either way. He looked sharp in that fight. He actually was throwing a decent jab. He looked pretty fast. And I remember the commentator saying that when they spoke to him, I think it was the day before the weigh-ins, he was already on weight. Now, against Mickey Gall, I'm not sure if he had a lot of weight to cut against Mickey Gall. I assume he did, but apparently this week he's got a lot of weight to cut, and it's just going to make him look sluggish. And obviously the fight camp plays into that as well, looking sluggish and a bit slow in lethargic if you haven't had a proper camp. I mean, looking at his Instagram, he's done some stuff with Alex Nicholson, but I don't know to what extent. It doesn't seem like he's had a proper camp. He's not, from what I can see anyway, he's not back at that. I can't remember what the name of the camp is that he used to train at, but the camp with like Jacare, etc. If he'd done his proper camp there and seemed to be taking this 100% serious, then I definitely would have let my bet ride. But just seeing him scoff food, and whether he's doing that for just for clicks, I don't know. But I just don't like the vibe I'm getting off of him again. I thought that he'd be taking this a bit more serious now. But I mean, the problem is because he got that, even though he didn't look great, it was a dominant win over Mickey Gall. So I guess he thinks he can get away with it again. And then I heard his corner is his girlfriend again. And apparently there is a guy cornering him as well this time. But it's like a long-term friend. I don't think it's a fighter or a trainer. So I've just bought out the bet. I don't want, I've got no regrets. Even if he comes out and sparks Tim Means in round one, I've got no regrets. I can't risk my money on someone that can't be asked and just treating it as a bit of a joke. I know people that are on Tim Means. I can see why. If you had, kind of a prime Perry here, I think it would be a very difficult fight for Means because there would be a lot of pocket exchanges. Even though Means is long, he likes to kind of fire in the pocket. Means is very comfortable in the pocket. If you're comfortable in the pocket, it's quite a rare thing. He's a guy that can see shots coming in the pocket. He kind of move slightly out of the way and fire back. It's a true skill to have that. You've got to be a fighter's fighter to be able to do that. But the problem with Means is he is getting a bit older. He's not as durable as he used to be. And while he looked good in his last fight, it was still a competitive fight, and the guy's name escapes me, but that guy hasn't got Perry's power. But it's just, how's Perry going to look in there? Is he going to come in sluggish? I can definitely see Means having success, but I can also see Means getting just caught at some point. Like I said, his durability isn't what it was, and I can just see him crumbling and going down. But I can understand why people would bet Means here, because if Perry does come in like it looks like he's going to, and a bit lethargic, a bit slow, Means he's going to be winning those exchanges generally. But it's just if he gets caught and if his chin can hold up, small cage, if you're on Means, it's very likely to be sweaty. I'm not sure if he can finish Perry. I don't think he can, so you're probably relying on a decision from Means. So I've bought out the bet, but I'm still going to pick Perry here. But it probably is more like no. I'm going to pick Tim Means because I was going to say. Based on the way Perry seems to have prepared for this fight, etc., it seems more like a 50-50 to me. And Tim Means is the one sitting at plus 130. I'm not betting Tim Means personally because I can just see him getting clipped in the pocket, but if you're looking for the value, I think it is more like a 50-50 with the way Perry's approaching fights at the moment and the way he's been looking. But like I say, the way Tim Means fights in the pocket and his style, I can just see him getting caught. So it's just a no bet for me on that fight. Next fight, co-main event, Jennifer Maia. I think this is the co-main event, or is it the main event? I'm not sure, but we'll do it first. Jennifer Maia, Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko is going to win this fight. The money line is absurd. There's no value. I think if you're looking at the value here, it's whether Shevchenko is going to finish or whether the fight's going to go over 2.5 rounds. It's unlikely Shevchenko is going to finish on the feet, unless she lands a head kick again or something. But I think they're both orthodox fighters here, as opposed to the Jessica Wright fight. So, unless she can land the front head kick, it's unlikely. This front head kick, switch kick, it's just unlikely she's going to land that. So, realistically, if Shevchenko finishes, it's going to be from the top position where she has proven to be a bit of a nightmare. She's coming off that win over Katlyn Chookagian, where she got top position and just finished already in round 3. fight before that went the distance with Liz Carmouche. She couldn't really get anything going against Carmouche. She finished Jessica Rai. Priscilla, she pounded on the mat. I mean, Priscilla was clearly outmatched, and that could have been stopped sooner. And then, Juliana Pena, she finished from the bottom with an armbar. I don't really see her being on the bottom here. But, Liz Carmouche is a physically strong girl, pretty competent grappler, tough to finish. But you'd say that about Katlyn. She's a brown belt under Henzo. They're not going to be giving them out like sweets over there, but she just was all over her from top position. So, I mean, look, the over 2.5 does scream value, but I just wonder if it is a trap bet and if Maia is going to get overwhelmed because, you look at Shevchenko's fights and she probably is going to take this fight to the floor. It's the way she's been approaching fights, and I don't think she's going to have much difficulty taking Jennifer Maia down. And also, just to touch on, I said that the head kick isn't there, but Valentina is, of course, a southpaw fighter. And she's facing an orthodox fighter here. So the head kick is there for Valentina. And like I said with, I think it was Jordan Wright, I said it's low percentage, but for someone like Jordan Wright, it's a higher percentage than most. And I'd say the same for Valentina. The way she whips it up there, the accuracy and the power she gets behind it is a higher percentage. So I don't want to completely dismiss her getting a stoppage on the feet, but likelihood is if it comes, it's probably going to be on the mat from top position. So, it's just, I don't really have a strong read either way. I think I bet Shevchenko by decision against, or the over, I can't remember. I think it was decision against Jessica Eye. And I also bet, I can't remember if I bet decision or the over against Chookagian, but whatever bets I placed in them, Chookagian and I fights, they didn't come in. So she has been a bit of a nightmare for me, trying to go the distance route or the over route, and it's not been happening for me. Twice she's burned me. I didn't bet it against Carmouche. I remember live betting her by decision, I think after round 2 or 3. But in terms of me pre-betting these fights going longer, it hasn't been coming in for me. And Jennifer Maia, I mean, I think she's only been finished once in her career. Let's just go back. Sheila Gaff caught her with punt, got caught cold there 10 seconds in. I think that's the only time she's been finished. But, Shevchenko is just such a big step up in competition. But, look, I think if you want to play the fight, I think the value is on the over, but full disclosure, I haven't played it yet, and I don't think I'm going to. She's burned me twice trying to go that route, and I'm just not sure how this is going to look if Shevchenko gets on top. I think Maia could be in trouble, but I think the over is the play if you're going to play it. But obviously the pick is Shevchenko. Main event, men's flyweight title, Figueiredo, Alex Perez. A lot of people that I speak to think Perez is live here. My concern with Perez is, he's been able to kind of bully everyone. And the one fight where he couldn't against Joseph Benavidez, I'm not really sure what happened in the ending there, whether they clashed heads or what. But, he couldn't bully Benavidez. Benavidez was firing back and he ends up getting knocked out. But like I say, there's a little bit of controversy over how that happened. Now he's got another guy who he's not going to be able to just go in and bully in Figueiredo, and I just wonder how that's going to work for him. I mean, Figueiredo hits incredibly hard for a flyweight. I don't think I've seen a flyweight that possesses the power he has. I saw something on Twitter a day or two ago where his weight is apparently bang on as well. This was a couple of days ago, I think he was already down to 136 or something, which is, the weight cut's been an issue a few times for him, but apparently he's bang on here. He's coming off a couple of KO wins over Joseph Benavidez. The rematch was really only ever going to go that same way. It was too quick a turnaround for Benavidez. It didn't really make much sense. But, he's minus 300. I like Figueiredo here, but the money line's too wide for me. He was, I think, minus 250, but even that I felt was a little bit too wide for me to play. I see why people like Perez here. He's probably going to look for the calf kick. Very effective against Formiga. And Figueiredo, if you can drag him into the later rounds, he does have that big weight cut, and we have seen him slow down a little bit in fights. He was definitely slowing down against Pantoja. Now, I mean, he hit Pantoja with everything but the kitchen sink, but he just couldn't put Pantoja away, and Pantoja kept coming, and he was definitely slowing down in that third round. But whether Perez can, absorb the punishment he did for 3 rounds, I just don't know, to take advantage of him slowing down. But I think the over, let me see what the price is on the over now. For me, it was, the value was on the over, but it's been bet down now. It is, it's getting on for minus 160 to minus 180, depending on where you're looking. It was a bit lower at about minus 140. But, kind of like the other fight, where I again, this is at 1.5, I was surprised. And again, like the other fight, the Dalby fight, where I thought that would be 2.5, I thought this would be as well. I think there's a little bit of recency bias going on here, with it being set at 1.5. They are flyweights at the end of the day. Now, Figueiredo is very hard-hitting flyweight, but they are flyweights. I don't think Perez can finish Figueiredo inside the first round and a half. So I think the 1.5 relies, very high percentage-wise on Figueiredo being the one to finish. And why he definitely can finish, let's not forget, he stopped Benavidez twice in under 1.5 rounds. But the rematch, as I said, Benavidez, I didn't see how that was going to work for him. He was talking about having concussion issues after the first fight. And look what happened in the rematch. As soon as he got caught, he was all over the place. Fight before that, he stopped Tim Elliott in round 1. Tim Elliott dived into a takedown and got guillotined. But, if you look back before that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, his first 5 UFC fights went over 1.5. Now, I know he stopped Morales in round 2 and he stopped Moraga in round 2. So, it was a little bit of a fine line there. It's not like they're all going to a decision. He was still stopping people. And Pantoja did have to take a lot of punishment to go the distance there. And like Jared Brooks was taking him down a lot in that fight, for instance. So we wasn't standing so much. But, just 1.5 for a title fight at flyweight, it's just surprising to me. And, I mean, Perez, he's been subbed a few times early in his career. So maybe that's what the odds makers were looking at with a 1.5. And obviously you've got the Joseph Benavidez fight. But again, I don't know whether he got hurt there with a punch or whether it was a head clap. It was just weird. But, if you're Perez, you're going to come out. You're not going to approach this fight surely like he did against Torres, where he just comes out and trades with him. Surely he's going to try and stick on the outside, trying to stay away from Figueiredo, try and get the calf kicks going, I would have thought. Try and slow down that movement somewhat. The way to beat him is you want him to slow down, so you've got to drag him into the later rounds. But at the same time, you've got to you've got to take some sort of risk, because you need the pace to be fairly high, because you want him to slow down. If it's a dull, slow-paced affair where you're just running away, he's not likely to slow down. So Perez does have to take some kind of risk here to get that high-paced fight going. But he's got to fight smart as well, and I think just stand on the outside, trying and avoid getting into any exchanges with Figueiredo, and just, if he can, just try and get the leg kicks going or the calf kicks going. Try and jeopardise that movement if you can. I think that's probably a smart way for Perez to approach his fight. Now, he trains with Colin Oyama, so he's at a good camp. I'm sure they're going to come in with a good game plan, but I think personally that would be the way to approach it. See if you could get Figueiredo switching stances, and his legs hurt, and Figueiredo's got 3 inches of reach as well. So I think that's just the clever way to approach that here. But for me personally, I'm not loving the Perez bet, but some people really like it. But I definitely think if you're into your live betting, if this fight gets into round 3. Let's see how Figueiredo's looking in round 3, and see what the line is on live betting. But the over for me at 1.5. For me personally, I think it should have been set at 2.5. So that's where I think there's value, but it is dissipating. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. A good show this one. Looking forward to it. So good luck everyone, and I'll be back to break down the card next week.